Critically Chaotic is a rowdy Dungeons & Dragons podcast that consists of adult themes and humor. Content warnings for this episode can be found in the episode description as well as a link to transcripts. Queen, who plays Mogan, was unable to attend this week's session, and so is absent from today's episode. Rest, weary traveler, and enjoy.
In the last episode, the Vox Anima explored an abandoned temple that was once a thriving home of worship to the god Ishtishia. After promising the last guardians of the temple that they'd ensure the artifacts of Ishtishia would be shown respect and the true story of their origin would be told, the Vox acquired the artifacts and made it safely out of the temple conflict-free. Vey also discovered a strange, mysterious, additional mask that wasn't on their list that she's taken a particular interest in, and that has taken a particular interest in her. Now, the Vox makes their way to Wingston to meet the Curator who hired them.
And after a bit of travel, about approximately 6 days, you arrive in Wingston, you turn in... Well, do you turn in your carriage, or do you go to find the Curator to turn in the artifacts first?
I assume we'd go to the Curator first, because how would we carry everything without the carriage?
You can ask around to find out where the museum is, or where the Curator lives if you want to go and invade their personal home.
I want to make sure the Curator ain't gonna do anything sort of illicit with the stuff.
Don't fuck the artifacts!
I meant illegal! Like, gonna traffic the artifacts.
Y'all can roll investigation to find out where the museum is.
17.
I got a 19.
15!
You ask around a bit, and they tell you where the museum is. You're told that it's on, like, the west side, kind of by the west gate. And so you head on over there, and you arrive, and it's a pretty impressive building. Y'all are actually in one of the cities that houses one of the royal families, and so it's a pretty big city. It's pretty nicely made and has a lot of really good buildings, especially when you get towards the more affluent areas. And this museum is kind of towards the affluent areas, but it's kind of on the border of the different zones, and so those in the less affluent areas can still go, like, to the museum. It's not, like, it's not riches locked. And so y'all arrive there, and it's a nice, tall building. It's made with a lot of pillars, a lot of very pretty white stone. It seems to be a relatively kind of recent building. There are a few painted signs out front that is talking about how it's like the History Museum of Negletis, and that there's going to be a new exhibition about artifacts from smaller towns that worship Ishtishia and whatnot. And so you all park, and then I assume at least like a majority of you would go in, if not everyone.
Should someone stay with the artifacts to make sure, like, no one takes them? Or are we bringing them right in?
I don't think we should bring them in right away. We need to check
I will stay with the artifacts.
I'll stay as well, then.
Okay.
We need to see if this guy is on the level before we just give him all this stuff.
Jerome's got it.
Jerome's got it. We'll stay with the cart.
Okay, so Vey and Snow are staying at the cart and everybody else is going in?
Yeah.
Okay. So the four of you head on inside. It's a bit open. You can see that, like, towards one area there are some signs painted that depict, like, oh yeah, like, go this way for this exhibit, yada yada yada. There is a receptionist at the front who is going through some paperwork, and she looks up and she smiles and she says, hello, are you here to attend one of the tours? Would you like to walk around? What can I do for you?
We took the fucking the quest about the Ishtishia guy.
We're here to return these stolen artifacts.
Yeah, our party members running a little behind, but we headed up ahead just to get things ready, you know?
For the new exhibit, the Ishtishia exhibit, of course.
Yeah.
let me go and get the curator, so I'll be right back. And she puts down her paperwork and she scurries off towards another section of the museum that seems to be like closed off. There's a couple of hired guards that are there just to be like, oh no, this area's closed, go that way. Kind of like gently turn people away.
Jerome would like to communicate to the others. Don't let on that we have the artifacts just outside. I want to make sure these folks are on the level before we go out doing anything, you know?
Oh, of course. I'm on the same page.
Because if this is a case of, we just want the artifacts just to have and then to sell them off to the highest bidder, I ain't fucking with that.
I wouldn't feel right after everything we went through with those ghosts.
It's gotta be respectful.
Mm.
So the receptionist returns with the curator in tow, and the curator is a kind of shorter tiefling. He's a bit rounder, and he has dark red skin and this very curly dark brown hair and these really big glasses. And he's talking with the receptionist as he's walking up, and he looks up at all of you and kind of stops short, and he goes, "Kareus?"
Fuck! Holy fuck!
Kareus just sort of stands there for a minute and stares back, and then goes, Kareus? Who's Kareus? I've never heard of a man named Kareus in my life. Why are you looking at me?
No, yeah, this is my buddy. His name is, Candy.
Yeah. I want to say, I want to say that Leaf hasn't said anything yet, but he's like taken a protective step kind of in front of Kareus, not completely blocking him, but sort of in front, and like is staring back at this person.
Jerome is trying to take center stage and step casually in front of Kareus to, like, sort of distract from what Kareus' obvious panic.
He just form a wall.
Kareus continues stuttering for several minutes and then goes, okay, hold on. My name is Kareus. That is my name. Hold on. It's okay. Hold on. Hi. How are you?
The curator looks back at you after that entire display. He blinks a couple times, looking like he's trying to figure out how he wants to form his words. And he goes, good. I've been good. What can I do for you? The receptionist said that you were here with the party to recover the artifacts. Is that true, Kareus?
Yeah, we did that. This is Valen, everyone. Valen, these are my friends Leaf and Jerome. Hi. So yes, artifacts. We did that. We have those. For you. You are the curator.
You have them. You have them now. Are they here? Are they outside? Or
They're outside on a carriage that we brought with us. We just wanted to know what your plan was for them.
to get them on display for the exhibit, of course. We'll have to take them into the back room for them to be looked over, cleaned, make sure that there's no damage to them, make sure that everything's accounted for. Can I go out to see them? And he like gestures towards the front door, like kind of starting to move that way, like
That depends on you, bud. Are we allowed to see the process of this sort of clarification, this classification? Will these be properly displayed? Show the respect they deserve.
He'll be respectful.
My buddy's vouching for you, bud, but I got my eyes on you. And he does the sort of 2 fingers facing my eyes, facing your eyes.
We typically don't show the process to the public, but if you're worried about it, and if you're friends with Kareus, then yes, that should be fine. I don't mind.
No, yeah, Kareus is my good buddy here. Ain't that right, Kareus?
Sure.
Yeah, we're buds. We know each other.
I see. You said that they were outside in the carriage?
Yes. And Kareus just turns on his heel and just starts walking.
Valen follows.
Leaf is just like exchanges a look with Jerome, like, God, what's going on here? And then walks out.
Jerome agrees with the look with Leaf and is just very, very carefully watching Valen.
Yeah.
Just very intensely.
Yeah, I think both Leaf and Jerome are like automatically distrustful of this dude.
Snow and Vey, you're outside in the carriage and you see Kareus first walk out very quickly with, I don't know, what's Kareus's expression, Kian?
Overwhelmed and maybe a bit terrified.
There you go, with an expression like that. And behind him is a red tiefling in like a nice getup, walking behind, and then Leaf and Jerome following behind him, probably giving him suspicious looks, I would assume, unless they're trying to hide that from their face.
Ah, I see it's the curator then.
Yeah, this is Voyman.
No, this is the Valen.
Yeah, that's what I said.
Valen, curator, artifacts.
Interesting. Are we to bring these to your estate, or how does this go usually?
If Valen is gonna look over the artifacts, to sort of like give mainly Kareus, but also like Leaf and Jerome a concerned glance, like what?
Kareus like smiles, but it's like he's trying to give a reassuring smile, but he's just like overwhelmed, so it's not very convincing.
Very shaky.
Yeah.
Huh. Okay. I'll look over to Valen questioningly, like, where are we bringing these?
Valen gestures back to the museum. There's a back room where we keep all of the items that are going to be put onto an exhibit that's not already on display, so you can help me bring it back there. And one of your compatriots, and he gestures to Jerome, suggested that you would want to watch the process that they go through, so I said that would be all right, if your party would like to see how that all goes.
Sure, yeah. Could we, as a cool little thing for helping you out, could we just look through the museum?
It's kind of interesting. All the old artifacts, the history.
The museum is free to the public to observe, so you're more than welcome to look around.
Lovely. Well, shall we go, Snow?
Yes, I personally would like to oversee the process and ensure that these artifacts are treated respectfully.
Of course. And so he goes over and he has his own sheet of paper that they especially is able to know is similar to the list of artifacts that you had found from the broken carriage from before. And he kind of looks it over and lets you all kind of unload the artifacts and bring them up into the museum while he leads the way. So you go inside and you go through that portion of the museum that was blocked off by the guard from before, and you go through there where there's a lot of stands and tables and glass cases that are empty at the moment, and you go through that area of the museum until you get into a back room, which he lets you all into, and it's a pretty spacious room with a lot of boxes and wrapped items. And he leads you a bit further beyond that into another room that is a bit smaller. It seems like it's made to accommodate maybe like up to 3 people, so it's kind of cramped with you all in there. But he shows you a table along the wall for you all to put the artifacts on, and then he lights a couple candles around a table in the middle while he starts going through the page of all of the artifacts to make sure that they're
Doesn't
there.
seem like we all need to be here. Kareus, would you like to accompany me as I look around the museum real quick?
Sure, just That sounds nice, yes.
Lovely. Shall we go? And I move my arm to sort of like beckon out of the room.
I think I'll tag along too. It's a little cramped in here.
Yes. And he quickly follows Vey out.
While you're leaving, Valen kind of glances at you as you're going, like the three of you, and says, enjoy the museum.
We will.
Kareus sort of looks back and nods awkwardly before escaping.
So Valen is just silently going through all of the items on the sheet, checking off what he finds while he's moving them slightly to differentiate them.
Snow's just like staring, making sure he doesn't like move the artifacts roughly or like treat them with disrespect. She's just like really critically watching everything he's doing, but not saying anything.
Jerome is less critical on the watching the artifacts and more critical on watching the guy and trying to make sort of conversation with him. He's very suspicious. So, museum's free to the public, huh?
Yes, we want the museum and all of its knowledge to be available to anyone, regardless of how high in society they may be. Knowledge is very powerful, and you shouldn't need money in order to access said knowledge.
I agree. Always said, knowledge is the most powerful thing in the world. It's one of my sayings. How does the museum, forgive me for making assumptions, how does the museum go about acquiring these artifacts, making its money? No business like a museum, even as lovely as this one is, can just be free to folks.
So the museum, he's still like working through the table. So the museum itself is free and open to the public. We make money either by selling specific tours, in which if you want a curated experience or you want more specific information, you can pay to have a guide go around and teach you more specifically about the various items we have on display. And we also make a majority of our money through donations made by a variety of the nobles that live around here, as well as some of the people that just have some spare change that they can toss the museum's way. Especially the regulars that like to come around and see the different exhibits every season.
That's very generous. How often do you have new exhibits rotating through here? And what happens to the old exhibits once you retire them, or do you just keep on building on additions?
We attempt to have a new exhibit every season or so, try to rotate it fairly often. We do have a few pieces that stay permanently within the museum that are important to this area of Ushadal. And then the exhibits that get rotated out either go into storage or they get sent to other museums throughout the country or to other continents entirely, so that people from other areas that maybe can't travel as much, can't travel all the way here, they're still able to learn about these various things.
Well, that's just mighty swell.
If you don't mind me asking, what inspired this exhibit? What gave you the idea?
He kind of pauses and he says, I've always been very interested in the history that came with the early Negletus days, the pre-colonialist days. And so I've always been interested in that sort of thing. So I've been pushing for more of those types of exhibits to be put on display, especially with the amount of pre-colonialism artifacts that are constantly in rotation around the continent.
And how did that lead you to the Temple of Ishtishia and the artifacts related to him?
These were actually a collection of different artifacts. Some of them were recovered from different areas all along the coastline, mostly from rundown villages that had unfortunately been terrorized by the people that came through to first settle Negletus. And we thought that it would be a good way in order to teach about the ancient days before Negletus was settled, rather than them just kind of sitting around in a place collecting dust or potentially to be stolen by those who would want to sell them off for how valuable they are and how old they are.
Of course. But I assume you will mention that it was Ishtishia that these are mostly related to, yes?
Yes, of course. All of these artifacts are related to various Ishtishia towns, and so it's going to be an exhibit purely about that god and how the pre-colonialist people that lived here often worshipped Ishtishia along the coastlines.
Wonderful, wonderful. And she just kind of like looks back at what he's doing to double check that he hasn't screwed up while he's been talking.
He finishes up with counting through the artifacts and turns back towards you all. It looks like that there are a few artifacts that are missing, and I don't mean to sound presumptuous, but I just need to check if they were missing from wherever you recovered them, or if perhaps you thought them to be of value to be sold off.
Snow immediately looks just like angry and offended and is just like, do you honestly think any of us would stoop so low as to steal from a god?
I only know one of you, and I don't think Kareus is, but I don't know you or any of your other companions, so, as I said, I had to check.
Ain't an unreasonable assumption, I will say. No, relax, Snow. It's fine, it's fine.
On my honor, this is what we found and recovered. All of it.
I got some chump jewelry that's fucking old as shit, but I don't think it's what you had. It doesn't match any of this stuff, so yeah. But I don't think the others are so equipped so as to go about taking anything that they weren't supposed to. Between you and me, they all seem like pretty genuine folk. And you know Kareus. He's a very swell fella. He don't got a dishonest bone in his body.
I don't know if I would necessarily say that.
Well, you and me have some kind of different experiences then, I'd say.
May I ask if any of the missing artifacts are, like, what is missing?
It mostly seems to be a lot of jewelry. He kind of turns back to the table just to like look through and double check that he hasn't missed anything. Mostly rings and some bracelets, necklaces, a lot of small things that are likely to get lost, I suppose.
Nothing of great importance, I assume, apart from the obvious importance that they have already.
Yes, apart from the obvious, nothing more than general jewelry and whatnot. Not necessarily something of great cultural value like some of these other items. And he kind of turns back. Alright, so then I will choose to believe you. I don't think that Kareus would necessarily travel with dishonest folk, so I will then now begin the cleaning process. And he sets down the paper and he chooses one of the items and gently sets it on the center table. And he goes about gathering a few different items from the shelves and the cabinets that are within the room. He gets like a dusting rag and then some fresh water and various other cleaning items, and he kind of gently goes through cleaning out off some of the dirt and some of the kind of like salty stains from the salt water at the temple and whatnot. Just going through very carefully, being very thorough, but not like scrubbing so much as to damage the items.
I would say Snow just kind of like leans back out of his way, but is like not moving her eyes from his hands.
Jerome does not move out of his way and tries to make not very good, not like an obstruction or a distraction, because he does want the artifacts cleaned. But he does make himself like very known within Valen's sort of presence. Like he's leaning over the table. He's not touching anything, but he's just like looking very closely and is continuing to interrogate Valen. Because, you know, sus. So, you sound like you have a bit of a history with our mutual pal, Kareus.
Yes, I do.
You wanna elaborate on that a little bit, or?
Well, it seems he hasn't really talked about me. I don't know if he maybe wants to mention me to you all.
No, yeah, that's fair. But I would also consider he looked a little bit spooked when he met you. And if you had, like, let's say, a less than pleasant sort of departure, less than pleasant sort of acquaintanceship, there might be some, folks that I know that might take a little bit of an issue with that.
Are those folks all of you?
Maybe. Maybe some of us, maybe some other folks that also are a little attached to our mutual acquaintance.
Mm-hmm. And just how long have you all been acquaintances?
Oh, so long. We've been through so much together. We've been through thick and thin. Kareus, we've saved each other a couple of times. It's been a hot minute.
He kind of like pauses. And how long would you categorize a hot minute?
God, can you even count? It's been a while. I'm bad at numbering the days. The days just go by so fast when you know a guy like Kareus. He's a swell fella.
He's gonna roll insight on that, but I don't know what you would roll in return.
I mean, it's not...
You're not necessarily being deceptive, but you also are.
Maybe persuasion?
I think performance. Both are fine by me. I have the same bonus, so...
Okay, then yeah, whichever. If it's the same bonus, then that's fine.
I'm also giving you guidance for that, so Snow's just kind of like sees you trying really hard to convince him that we've been a group for a very long time, just kind of like pats you on the shoulder briefly.
26.
Oh my god!
Whoa! Okay. What did you roll without your bonus?
22.
Without your bonus.
Oh, I went without Snow's
on the
thing.
D20, what did you roll?
17.
Well, he rolled a nat 20.
Well,
unfortunately.
Fuck.
So he kind of like looks at you and he says, "You haven't known him for all that long at all."
Long enough.
Well, regardless, however long and however through thick and thin, I was not important enough to be mentioned, or maybe he purposefully did not want to mention me, and I don't think that it's really my place to out that for him, if you will.
So, you're respecting Kareus, is that what's happening here?
Yes.
Alright. If you say so.
Fallon is getting progressively more annoyed at this line of questioning.
Jerome is satisfied with his curiosity, and now wants to bother Valen about the actual contents of the museum, because it sounds really cool.
So Jerome continues to ask a variety of questions about the museum. But actually, while you're talking about, like, the museum itself and the exhibits and whatnot, Valen seems to relax a bit and seems almost cheery about talking about it while he's working. And so, while that's happening, we'll pause and we'll skip on back to the others that are wandering around the museum, Kareus, Vey, and Leaf.
Oh, wow. Look at this ancient artifact. Okay, who the fuck is that?
Kareus kind of takes a few, like, deep breaths to kind of chill himself out. Like, the kind of walking away kind of helped him calm down a minute. He goes, my ex-boyfriend?
Oh.
Oh. Oh.
That explains the energy in the room.
Yeah, I'm sorry. I probably made you all very worried. I was very overwhelmed and caught off guard.
No, that's understandable.
I haven't seen him in 6 years. I didn't expect to ever see him again. We didn't really end things great.
Yeah, I kind of guessed.
I could sense I could sense that a little bit.
I probably need to apologize to him for all of that. Sorry for dragging y'all into that.
We all have our awkward moments where you encounter someone from your past in the middle of your friend group. It happens to the best of us.
What we can do is we can learn from this experience all together. I don't know what we can learn, but we can. Do you want to keep wandering around for now as you gather yourself a little bit more?
Maybe just for a few more minutes. I don't want to leave him alone too long.
Xaan, while we're wandering around, does anything stand out in all of the artifacts? Like anything interesting or cool?
I mean, it's full of a lot of interesting and cool things. That's why it's a museum.
But does anything stand out is the question.
They are all equally really cool.
Wow, this place is so equally cool.
As they're walking, after like a few minutes, he says, um, he, he's, I think you would actually maybe get along with him, Vey. He's very passionate about history. He would be very respectful of the artifacts. I think it would be worth it to tell him about our experience at the temple. Give him that information. I would be very excited about the first-hand sources of the ghosts, I think. He's very passionate about this stuff. Kind of a lifelong interest of his.
Good to know. Well, here's the plan already. So, what we can do is when we rendezvous back with everybody else, you can say your piece with Valen, and you can have your own little moment over there.
If you break eye contact with him and look at me in the eyes, I could run interception, be like, tell me more about these artifacts. I'm very interested in the past, and I could sort of lead him away and ask if he can show me the jewel of the museum.
All right. that sounds lovely. Thank you.
If you ever have any issues like this in the future, I'm good at being that sort of person. You saw what we did with Leaf. It went off without a hitch. Not a single bump in the road.
We definitely weren't almost booted from the guild.
If either of you need help with this sort of thing in the future, I'm very good at being the distraction. And she sort of like swishes her hair in a very dramatic way. That's obviously making fun of herself, but she's just like, I'm very distracting.
Kareus is definitely like giggling, and he just says, "Thank you, Faye. I appreciate that."
I guess we'll just keep wandering around until Kareus feels okay enough to go back.
To go back into a room with his awkward ex.
We just kind of like circle back toward the room after a bit.
So you get back to the room. Valen has been cleaning for the whole time while he has been babbling with Jerome. And he's cleaned about half of the artifacts, and he's actually starting to put the cleaning supplies away because the day is winding down, and so he's going to have to close the museum soon.
I'd probably like slip in kind of quietly and very soft, like kind of awkwardly, but not wanting to startle him too much, being like, Valen, are you available for a moment, perhaps?
He's just finished putting some of the cleaning items away, and he looks over and he goes, "Oh, yes, of course. Will it be long? If so, let me finish putting the artifacts away, and then we can talk."
Of course, just whenever you're ready.
So he's gonna go about with the artifacts, putting them in safe, secured places, handling them very carefully, putting them into lockboxes, locking them, etc., etc. When he's done, he kind of turns back and says, "Do you want to talk here? Do you want to go somewhere? Not." He gestures to the very tiny room.
Just we can just step outside just for a moment, I suppose. And Kareus kind of like just like outside the room, like still within eye shot of specifically Vey, so she can still run her interference, but like kind of a little bit giving them privacy, basically.
I can send my familiar onto your shoulder invisibly, and you can do a signal that way.
Just like pat it on, just like look like you're like touching your shoulder or something, and it'll be on your shoulder, and then I'll just come out.
Okay. So in that case, he pulls Valen like a like more obviously private spot. I just wanted to apologize for how I acted on my arrival. I wasn't expecting to see you, and it caught me off guard, and I reacted very stupidly, and I'm sorry about that. And I also apologize because I think I may have made my companions very suspicious. I'm sorry.
Yes, suspicious is a light word these days.
We fully threatened him.
Yep.
But it's all right, Kareus. It's fine.
He kind of fiddles with his gloves for a minute and then says, "I'm glad you're doing well. It's good to see that you're doing something that you enjoy. This seems like something of a dream job, maybe.
Yeah, I'm very, very happy to be working here. I'm glad to see that you're not traveling alone anymore. It's good to know that you'll have people looking after you, and so you won't be getting into so much trouble.
Oh, I don't know about the not getting into trouble part, but, um, yes, they seem to be good people. You know me, I'm suspicious until the end, but, they seem to be very good people. And it's been very nice so far.
I'm happy to hear that. And you're in an adventuring party, I assume. That's the only explanation that I can come up with.
Yes, we joined a mercenaries guild, which is not something I have ever considered myself doing, but I'm here. Our group is called the Vox Anima. I sort of feel a bit like I'm just along for the ride, but it's been wild.
You get to travel, and I know that that's something that's very important to you.
Yes, the artifacts, did, Jerome and Snow tell you anything about when we found them?
Nope, not really. They were interested in the process, but they didn't really say much about the artifacts themselves.
And he kind of talks about, like, kind of a shortened version because he doesn't want to waste too much of Valen's time, but, like, talks about, like, the temple and the ghosts, and tells Valen about, like, specifically the history that they learned, and trying to keep it relevant to what Valen could use.
Valen looks fascinated by all of that and extremely excited by everything that you're saying.
But yeah, that's the long and short of it. I figured that would be something you would want to know and could be helpful for creating your exhibit.
Oh, yes, that's that's amazing that you spoke to people. You got this information firsthand. They were ghosts, but firsthand. That's amazing, Rias. That's amazing. I'm sure that you and your companions have traveled for quite a while, and you came straight here, and there's just a lot to catch up on. I feel like we haven't really even talked much. Would you and your companions like to come and I don't know, have some tea, some food, something? I feel weird asking, but it's just been a while.
I would love to, and I certainly would ask the rest if they're invited.
He doesn't really hold you up. He kind of like gestures to go back into the museum so that he doesn't just keep you awkwardly on the steps.
All right. Kareus goes back to like the rest of the team and he says, "That went better than I expected." Valen, he invited all of us for some tea, and none of you are obligated to join, of course. I know you all likely have better things to do, but if you're interested, I would enjoy it if you would come.
I would love to join.
Yeah, I wouldn't mind coming.
Is Valen in the room right now?
I assume that you all are in the the lobbyish area, so he's technically in the room, but he's like far off that he probably can't hear you.
Okay, can I walk up to him quickly before I answer Kareus at all?
Snow just leaves the group. Hang on.
We all just watch as Snow walks away, like, okay.
Valen, is it?
He turns. Yes. Hello.
Can I would like to know, what security measures do you guys have at night? Like, will the artifacts be in a safe place where they can't be stolen or damaged or anything?
Of course, they're kept in the lockboxes, as you saw, and we have guards that patrol both during open hours and also at night to ensure that nothing's stolen. With how valuable all of these artifacts are, we take our security very seriously.
And you guys have never had problems in the past with things going missing?
We've had our problems, yes, as any establishment has. No security measure is perfect, but that's part of something that I wanted to discuss with you and the rest of your companions. If Kareus has told you, I invited you all for tea. It's something that I wanted to discuss. It doesn't happen often, but there was a breach recently.
And you don't think this breach will be a problem again with the new artifacts?
We've added more security, so We're certainly hoping not, but we're all mortal, so...
I suppose we can discuss it over tea, but perhaps a few of us should stay overnight to assist in the protection of the artifacts.
If you would like, we haven't really announced that new artifacts have arrived today or that a new exhibit is going up yet, but if that would make you more comfortable, then I don't have an issue with that.
Considering we had to rescue them in the first place, I think it would probably be prudent if we did, but let's discuss it with the group over tea. And Snow just turns around and walks back to the group, doesn't even wait for him to respond. Just tells the group, just nods to the group that she's, like, down to go.
Kareus, very confused now, just kind of nods awkwardly and looks to Jerome. Would you also like to come, Jerome?
Oh, I would be honored to be able to hang out in both of y'all's acquaintances and enjoy the sort of lovely tea, lovely atmosphere that's gonna be happening there. Oh, it'll be great. It'll be just the swellest time. I would love to go. Thank you for inviting me, Kareus. I appreciate it.
What is with y'all's energy today? What the fuck is happening?
The longer Jerome went on with, like, would love this, the more, like, furrowed Kareus' eyebrows became as he tried to determine if Jerome was being passive-aggressive. Like, he can't tell, but he's worried.
Don't worry about it. He's definitely being passive-aggressive, but, maybe not towards Kareus.
You all kind of stay at the museum for a little bit longer, just until the last of the hours kind of finish up. Valen goes and talks to the security, kind of goes through things again, reminds them, especially the newer people that were hired, about, like, how to do the rounds and whatnot, blah, 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 blah. And so it's maybe, like, 10 minutes after the museum is closed that he finally emerges and meets you all out in the street. And he notices the Psych Outpost rented vehicle, and he says, should we swing by the Psych Outpost so you can return that before we go to tea?
Oh, I can just go and take it myself. It's no big deal. Don't need a whole giant group to be taking things anywhere. So y'all go ahead.
I'm gonna send my invisible familiar to settle on the back of the cart.
Major's giving Jerome a chaperone.
Literally.
Oh my god.
What happens is that, like, Jerome gets onto the cart and starts steering the horse, like, after waving you all goodbye, and then your imp goes and sits on the back of the cart out of Jerome's view and, like, turns visible to, like, give you all a little wave and then turns invisible again. Valen watches you go after that weird display and kind of looks to the rest of you and says, I live down this way. And he starts guiding you all down the street. So he guides you through the streets down to the residential area of Wingston. So Wingston is kind of divided into, like, the upper class area of town and then the everyone else area of town. And he lives in the everyone else area of town. He takes you all to one of the houses, and it's a pretty, like, very modest house. It's on rentable property, and it's kind of like he leads you all in, and there's a living room area with, like, a little sofa and a little coffee table. There's, like, a kitchenette, so it just has a little area to store some items, and then there's a fireplace where cooking can also be done, and then there's a hallway that presumably leads to a bedroom. And he's kind of looking around, taking, like, a couple chairs from the kitchenette, kind of moving another chair around, and he kind of looks and he's like, I have a couple chairs in my room. I'll go get that so you all can have a place to sit, but please make yourself comfortable. And he heads into the bedroom to grab said chairs.
Snow just kind of sits on the ground with her back against a wall, not even worrying about sitting in a chair or anything.
Valen returns with another chair from the bedroom and notices Snow sitting on the ground and says, would you like a pillow or anything to sit on, or are you comfortable, or?
I'm quite fine, thank you.
He gives a smile and goes to the kitchen to retrieve the teapot with some water, and then he comes back and starts the fire in the fireplace to hang the pot on so that we could get some boiling water. And he turns back to all of you. So how long have you all been traveling together for?
Oh, perhaps about 2 weeks we've known each other. Feels like longer.
Leaf and I have known each other longer, though, about a year and a half, maybe?
Yeah, that sounds right to me.
He nods. Valen looks a bit awkward, not entirely knowing how to go about having nice tea with you all when he doesn't know you, but...
How'd you end up in the museum job with the museum? Curating.
Well, I went traveling for a little bit through Ushadal trying to find a new place to settle down. Eventually I settled on Wingston. They have one of the bigger museums within Ushadal, so I was quite excited. I got a job just as a tour guide for a bit, and I got to know a lot about things. I helped out a lot, put in a lot of hours, and eventually when the curator for this museum wanted to move to a different country, I applied to be promoted and I got the job.
Why don't you tell us a bit more about the security issues that you've been having?
Yes. So it was about maybe a little bit over a week ago. There was a break into the museum overnight. A couple guards were killed, although the others were either subdued by being thrown into unconsciousness or they were tied up. And a number of artifacts were stolen. It was 7 of them that were from the Fae exhibit that was supposed to go on for this month, but due to it being stolen, we shut down the exhibit to put the rest of the artifacts into more safekeeping. We have been looking into people to go after them. We don't have too much of a lead. We know that they headed south. We know that it was for the bandit group called the Thistles, but beyond that, we don't know too much about where they are or what they were planning on doing with the artifacts. So I've been looking into people to hire to go and find them, but those that I've been looking for either want to charge a very hefty price because they're under the impression that the museum has a lot of money due to the amount of rare artifacts we have, or it is people that I fear may take the artifacts after they find them and pawn off some of them for their own gain, which would also be quite unideal. So I've been struggling to find a good adventuring team that would be willing to help us recover the artifacts. But, well, I trust Kareus, and if he trusts you all enough to travel with you and become an adventuring party with you, then I suppose that you would be more than trustworthy enough for the job.
Well, I myself am also very, very interested in things pertaining to the past as you are, so I can assure you I have an equally vested interest in keeping these things safe.
Also, do you know who the leader of the Thistles are? Just wondering.
I don't know. I don't really know anything about the group beyond what their name is. I'm not sure. There's probably less than savory individuals that may be acquainted with them enough to know who their leader is, but I certainly have no idea.
Did you see, this is a very strange question. Did you see any bird feathers while in the museum after there was the break-in? We've had the weird run-in with a bird individual. Don't worry about it.
No, there weren't any bird feathers. I don't think the thistles are really associated with birds of feathers from just the rumors that I've heard about them.
So it was the Fae exhibit that they were stealing from?
Yes, there's not too much known about the Fae, but we had a collection of artifacts that we know were from specific Fae villages, as well as a few of the sparse Fae writings and artwork that were all stolen from the museum.
Would you be able to put together a list of the missing artifacts for us, just that we could have a more comprehensive way of gathering all the ones that have gone missing?
Yes, absolutely. That wouldn't take much time at all. I keep a very strict journal about all of the exhibit items that we have.
So what kinds of history are you most specialized in?
Pre-colonialism, Neglitus is primarily what I'm most interested in. Of course, there's not many artifacts or writings about that time, so it's hard to necessarily specialize in it.
Understandable. Probably once we get back to the museum, tomorrow. I would love to hear what you know about it. It's something that pertains to me, obviously. So anything related to it, I'm very interested in.
Absolutely. If you don't mind me asking, what elven community do you come from?
Valheim.
Oh, you're a part of the High Elves then.
Yes, I am.
Oh, that's fascinating. We don't get too many High Elves that are just traveling around, although I guess most of them are pretty secluded within Ushadal, though they normally just stick around Velheim. If there's anything in the museum that you find that may be inaccurate or anything of that sort, feel free to let me know. We want to correct any misinformation immediately.
I would love to. We'll probably just go on a tangent about Elvish shit.
They excitedly talk about ancient Elvish culture together.
Yeah, everyone else just awkwardly sitting there slurping their tea. At one point, Vey would sort of like give like a sly little like wink to Kareus, be like, "You're off the hook." Sort of look in her eyes.
Kareus grins at her.
It's like partway through while you guys are talking that Val just suddenly goes, oh, I'm so foolish. I completely forgot. And he stands up and he kind of goes over to like a counter or whatever. And he opens up a drawer. I completely forgot about your payment. How many of you are there in the party? There's 5?
6.
6, okay. And he takes out a pouch and he kind of like goes through counting out some money. And he's like, okay, here you go. I'm so sorry about that. And he passes out 20 gold to each of you. And then he's holding on to an extra 40 gold for Jerome and Mogan that are not there. And he says, who should hold on to the money for the other 2 that aren't present?
I can.
He hands over the extra money to you.
After the money gets handed out, Snow kind of finally looks up again at people after just kind of like zoning out in the corner by herself. She finally kind of looks up and goes, "Oh yes, Valen, we were going to discuss with the group perhaps staying over that night to protect the artifacts. Yes."
Yes, if you all would like to do such a thing, you're welcome to. You would just be a part of the usual security. Nothing's happened in the past week since the burglary.
I'm just a little bit concerned, considering we already had to rescue the artifacts once. I wouldn't want to have to do it again.
That's understandable. Although they were in transit, they weren't located within the museum when they were stolen.
Out of your exhibits, which would you say is the most highly at risk currently?
Probably the other Fey artifacts would be the most sought after, not just because they were already stolen from once, but just because Fey artifacts in general are harder to come by due to all of the destruction that happened with the War of the Black Capes. And we've got those securely locked away. They're locked within a safe house, and that's being guarded all the time as well, so they're even safer than the current items that are on display at the museum.
Perhaps the party could guard the museum because they can do more rounds. I could go to the safe house and go there instead since I'm more well acquainted with those types of things. I could go over and double check on those.
Just so it's more than the standard guards.
So you all want to be watching over the artifacts then?
Snow nods her head like it's obvious.
You can talk to the head of security about being hired on to be added for that, and I guess I'll look for a different party to go after the thieves.
Oh, we could do that as well, just tomorrow.
Yes, I would assume they'd be most at risk tonight. You know, the first night when not everything has been properly secured and things might still be out in the open while they are being cleaned.
He looks offended that you would suggest that he would not properly secure his artifacts.
Did the original burglars come at night? Just double checking.
Yes.
Okay, so what we could do is we could have a more well-equipped adventuring party, such as literally ourselves. We could take rounds being extra guards with probably abilities that your regular guards don't have. And then tomorrow we could go after that group just because you just got more. It might be at higher risk for new people to come in and try and steal these artifacts that we've brought you.
You can consider this an extension of us rescuing those artifacts for you, just to make sure that they're extra safe.
Sure. As I said, I have no problem with that, but I'm not the one in charge of the security, so I would not be the one paying you or anything. If you would want to officially be hired on for a night, you would have to talk to the head of security in regards to it. She's probably currently taking her shift. She usually does the first shift right after closing at the museum. So back to the museum, I suppose.
Cool. And I go to the head of the guard for the artifacts that are in this safe house.
Yes, she. If she hires on all of you for the night, she would also direct you to where that would be.
Well, I'm just about done my tea, so I'm ready to go.
Could I quickly bamf into my familiar's eyes to see how Jerome is faring?
Yes. You hop into the familiar's eyes, who seems to be on Jerome's shoulder. The cart is gone, so you can assume that Jerome has turned in the cart. But you find him currently buying scones from
No!
a baker. Yeah. This is in an actual building, so you can maybe hope that they're less poisonous. But he is indeed buying more scones.
I knew that Jerome was up to something as soon as he hopped on, going away by himself. I was like, he's gonna do something either crime-worthy, he's gonna talk to some crime buddies, or something like this. And my familiar's not impressed. He gives you a deadpan look.
Is he visible?
I don't know. That was just Alex saying that. I don't know if he actually does or not.
If he's visible,
He gives you a deadpan look, but you can't see him. You don't even know that he's there yet.
Yes! You just feel judgment from somewhere.
Critically Chaotic is a Dungeons & Dragons podcast brought to you by the following people. The DM is Xaan, who can be found as @Xandir on all platforms. They is played by Alex, who simply cannot be found. Snow is played by Bean, aka Alexa, who can be found in a variety of ways, but mainly @Alexandra_Jaden on Twitter. Kareus is played by Kian, who can be found as @LostFanboy on most platforms. Jerome is played by Lady, who writes, quote, "And that's all you get, you dirty gremlins." Mogan is played by Queen, who chooses not to be located at this time or ever. Leaf is played by Sayla, also known as Strawberry online, who can be found as @_strawberrymilk on Twitter. The theme song is Melody by Emorie. If you would like to support Critically Chaotic, please consider leaving a 5-star review and following us on whatever podcast listening platform you are currently using. You can find us @CritChaoticPod on Twitter with no underscores, where we post updates and retweet fan content. For any other platform you would like to see us on, please look in the description. We will see you next week for the continuing adventures of Vox Anima. Have a great week, everyone.
That's because he blames himself. You're a bad person. And no one can hear this.
That broke me.
Don't be a snitch.
Don't be a snitch.